The Easter weekend in the Championship just never fails to disappoint, does it? We've got all the action to talk through today, as well as our score predictions heading into Monday. Let's jump into it. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. Loads to discuss in today's videos, from comebacks, controversial refereeing decisions, some great goals and more. I want to get your guys' thoughts on everything that unfolded yesterday in the comments down below. And without any further ado, let's just jump straight into it. And there's only one place to start out, at Kenilworth Road, where Luton put an end to Nottingham Forest's fantastic unbeaten run, with Naismith's penalty being the decisive factor between these two sides. Now, when we're talking about controversial decisions, oh my god, this game had about 10 of them in this one. So, want to get your guys' verdict on everything in the comments down below. Before we go into officiating and decisions though, just in terms of a bounce back and what we actually saw from Luton in this game, I thought was seriously impressive. They sprung a plan on Nottingham Forest to really limit them in the areas where we expect Forest to hurt teams, and boy did it work. From minute one, the intensity was there from this Luton side, and just at a point of the season when, you know, after how their last couple of games have gone, we started to ask, you know, have they run out of steam a little bit? Certainly wasn't the case in this one. The atmosphere seemed to be really going at Kenilworth Road, and boy did the team feel of it from there on in. The first controversial moment comes from the penalty spot though. Is it a penalty or not? Let me know down below. I have to admit, on first viewing, I thought, oh, that looks like a penalty. But then you see the angle from sort of behind the shoulder, it then looks like a Luton player swiped the ball away. Then you see the other angle, and it does come off Colback's arm first. It is a little bit controversial because we're talking about such a short distance, and while Colback's arm is out a little bit, he is sort of running. You know, you don't run naturally with your sort of arms behind your back, do you? But in the modern game, as harsh as it is, we do see those sort of penalties given, so I can understand why that was a penalty. Luton obviously go ahead and took that away, but by no means was that the end of the controversial decisions. Finally, Forest have a decent bit of play, get back into the game through Jed Spence. Nice ball goes through. Spence is in an offside position, but it comes off a Luton player, so that goal should have stood, and ultimately has ended up costing Forest. The red card was also a bit of a farce, to be completely honest, but there were a few moments in this match where things started to look like they were all going to boil over, really. For Forest, we did say coming into this one that it was a potential banana skin, and with how the rest of the results unfolded this weekend, it could have been worse. You know, Bournemouth also dropping points this weekend, but it isn't crucial that they go ahead and bounce back on Monday. For Luton though, what a result. And what a game we had unfolding at St Andrews in the end. Birmingham blowing a 2-goal lead as Coventry's top 6 hopes suddenly are reignited as they put 4 goals past them to mount some comeback, to say the least. I have to say, from both sides, there was some woeful defending on show for this one. Neither side capable, it seems, of defending a set-piece situation, but Birmingham getting themselves into the lead. They scored the second goal in the 39th minute and somehow went into half-time level at 2-2 thanks to a Ben Sheaf brace towards the end of that half. But Coventry had that little bit more quality about them in the second half, and it makes for a really interesting picture now when we look at the table. I have to admit, before, you know, the latest round of fixtures, I had pretty much totally discounted Coventry from the top 6 picture. I still think it will take quite a bit to oversee some of the sides above them, but they're now just 3 points off the top 6 with 4 games to go. I tell you what, if they beat Bournemouth on Monday, suddenly things will get very interesting indeed. But Coventry have been that sort of side throughout the season, haven't they? They'll sort of suck you back in and then let you down when you're least expecting it. But great stuff there from Coventry. Probably the less about Birmingham, the better. After that, too, Bournemouth up against Middlesbrough. Now, this one looked to be two sides who cancelled each other out, really. The first half was fairly uneventful, though Middlesbrough had a huge claim for a penalty. Probably 2 huge claims for a penalty coming in the same move. I mean, we saw the penalty that was given at Luton, a very similar occurrence in this one with a handball from Adam Smith, and then the follow-up challenge, but neither of which were given by the referee. I think that Middlesbrough would have probably felt quite aggrieved with that, given some of the other decisions we've seen this weekend in the Championship. Bournemouth's best chance came in the second half, that free header from Jefferson Lerma, but from open play, there wasn't really all too much endeavour from Boro to really go ahead and put Middlesbrough to the sword in this one. Middlesbrough looked quite organised and resolute in the way they played, and I just wondered, with Forest playing first and with them losing, maybe Scott Parker had sort of an eye on that and thought that a point in this game isn't the worst result in the world, and so they were a little bit reluctant to sort of throw everything at Middlesbrough and sort of go for broke in that sense. Both teams now, though, have got massive games coming up in midweek. Bournemouth head to what's now looking like a really tricky game against Coventry with how they've had a bounce recently. And Middlesbrough, the trapdoor could be open for the top 6 now with Sheffield United slipping up this week, and they have a really interesting game up against Huddersfield, so all to play for in that sense. For Hull up against Cardiff, this one very much seemed like a game of two halves. First half, Hull definitely having the better of this one, and finally they've broken that home record duck, and it's typical that they went ahead and did so in their away kit when their away form has been absolutely fantastic recently, but deservedly so. We're 2-0 up at half time. Cardiff really offered little in that first half and has sort of been typical of Cardiff recently. I think in 5 of their last 6 matches, Cardiff have been the team to concede first, which is a trend they're going to have to buck heading into next season. Sometimes they just leave themselves with a little bit too much to do, and that was obviously the case for this one. Second half, Hull did sink back a little bit, and it did set up what seemed like a little bit of a nervy finish when Hull probably should have had this one killed off a little bit earlier. But so more chances from Cardiff in the second half. It was Aidan Flint with the header from Doyle's corner which got Cardiff back into it, but ultimately just left themselves with too much to do after that poor start. But yeah, I'm sure that Hull fans are thankful that they saw at least one more home win before the season wraps up. Next then to Peterborough up against Blackburn, and once again Blackburn slumping towards a really disappointing result and performance as Peterborough take all 3 points from this one. Now don't get me wrong, Blackburn were on the wrong end of quite a few key decisions in this match. The Brereton goal, which was ruled out in the first half, the red card, bit of a debatable one. Was there possibly a foul in the build-up to Peterborough's opening goal? All those things can be debated, but ultimately it's another game where Blackburn haven't played anywhere near to the levels that we saw them at the first half of the season, and ultimately that's why they're not going to make the top 6 this season. We looked at Blackburn's run-in a few months ago, and we all thought that was quite reasonable for them, but unless they're showing up in any of these matches, they're not going to get the points needed to go ahead and secure a top 6 finish. It was Brereton who finally did give Blackburn the lead after 77 minutes, but once again, having that fear of sort of wanting to hold on to the lead, maybe sat back on their lead a little bit. Sammy Smodics gets pushed back into it, and then Jack Marriott scores that winner to absolutely sink Blackburn. I think that mentally, that's going to be quite a damning defeat there for Blackburn, and a tough one to go ahead and bounce back from. For Peterborough, good result, and once again, probably a case of what if for Peterborough this season, had they brought in Grant McCann sooner on into the season, because there has been an obvious improvement there. Next then to Deep Dale for Preston up against Millwall, and I have to admit, a really good game of football in the end. End-to-end stuff, both sides having chances, and both sides probably ruined some of the misses that they had in the second half. Preston started as the brighter of the two sides, DJ and Cunningham with a nice link up down the left-hand side, and in the end, Murray Wallace puts it into the back of his own net. Millwall equalised not long after that, though, a nice link up between Jed Wallace and Murray Wallace for the equaliser. I have to admit, it was a lovely ball in and a lovely header into the top corner. Maybe Cunningham can get out to close Jed Wallace down a little bit quicker and the cross doesn't come in, but taking nothing away from Millwall, that was a lovely goal there. And then in the second half, it all just became a little bit bonkers, really. Millwall will be thinking they should have scored when Daniel Everson makes that outrageous triple save from the 3 chances that Millwall have in quick succession. But on the other side of the coin, I think that Preston fans are looking at Sean Maguire and thinking, how has he not buried that chance when he was through? But Bartosz Bilkowski did enough to squirm that one in the end. So yeah, a really good game of football. I thought that either team could have gone on to win this one in the second half. For Millwall, they really could have done with a win in this one, but a point still keeps them in and amongst the playoff picture, particularly with how some of the other results went ahead and unfolded this weekend. They're 10th at the table at the moment, 62 points, 3 away from Sheffield United, who are occupying that place in 6th at the moment. Millwall, I think, will definitely be looking towards Monday and thinking that's a bit of a must-win in their playoff hunt. But yeah, really entertaining game of football in the end. I thought that DJ and Whiteman were 2 standouts for Preston, as well as Daniel Everson, who was just on another level. The amount of points he saved this season is outrageous. And what a result it was for Reading, who saw off Sheffield United by 2-1 thanks to a 92nd minute winner. That goes ahead and puts Reading on 40 points, and while mathematically they're not yet safe, I can't help but feel like that pretty much secures it for Reading's place in the Championship heading into next season. I just can't see any of the sides in the bottom three making up more than 40 points from this point onwards. So that win right there is absolutely huge for Reading, and fair play to them. Lucas Jow with the opening goal after 17 minutes. Sheffield United sort of huffed and puffed in the second half, but I think we're seeing a side now who are really lacking the quality that's been missed by, you know, those strikers who have been out injured in the second half of the season, probably mostly so Billy Sharp, who they've not really looked like much of a goal threat without him, have they, in these most recent matches, and this was another example. And Dye got them back into it, but Tom McIntyre in the 92nd minute, and I have to say it did look like summer way into being when that one hit the back of the net for sure, but I think that pretty much gets Reading over the line in terms of survival. For Sheffield United, it's looking tricky from here on in now, with their future no longer in their hands, I suppose, because Middlesbrough have that game in hand on them. Stoke up against Bristol City looked to be your typical sort of end of season clash between two sides who realistically have nothing to play for at this point in time, but it was the away side who came out on top thanks to Jay De Silva's great winning goal in the 84th minute. Question for Bristol City fans, did he mean it or not? I've already seen the comparisons to, you know, Roberto Carlos on Twitter and things like that, but whether he meant it or not, it was a lovely goal, to be fair, set up by Semenyo. Crazily enough, that's only Bristol City's 5th clean sheet this season, and 2 of them have come against Stoke, which is absolutely crazy. Stoke probably went closest through Lewis Baker when he hit the crossbar, but to be honest, there were quite few and far between in terms of the clear-cut chances throughout, and it did take a bit of quality from De Silva to go ahead and win this one for Bristol City. For Swansea up against Barnsley, to be fair, it was a decent enough performance from Barnsley in this one, and they probably were the side that edged this game. Swansea only seemed to properly sort of click into gear after they got a goal behind in this one, but Bassi with the assist into Gomez, nice finish for that goal. Bassi himself, I think, had 8 key passes throughout this game, which must be some sort of record high for the Championship this season. But lovely equaliser from the Sham, sort of comes across the ball and bends it into that far post, and in the end the game finishes as a 1-1 draw. Really a game that Barnsley needed to win, particularly with, you know, some of the chances that they crafted out and things like that. But with Reading winning this weekend, Barnsley dropping points again, it leaves them with a 10-point gap to go ahead and make up, and I think that's unrealistic with 5 games to go for Barnsley, if I'm being honest. So it looks as if Barnsley are probably dead and buried at this point, dare I say it. In terms of Swansea, they just weren't quite on it in this one, like we've sort of become accustomed to in the second half of the season. A little bit of an off day for them in this one. We saw West Brom beating Blackpool by 2-1 thanks to a 93rd minute winner from Carlin Grant. I think Blackpool will be disappointed by how probably both the West Brom goals came about, really. Andy Carroll was given the freedom of the Hawthorns for the first goal as he sort of meandered his way into the box, but Andy Carroll recently has put in a string of decent performances from West Brom, I must say. For Blackpool, it's Ekpiteta who's had quite the goal-scoring touch about him recently, who gets them back into the game, but Carlin Grant in the 93rd minute. Blackpool, few opportunities to clear their lines before Carlin Grant bundled it over to give West Brom all 3 points. Despite the win though, it still feels like there's a massive underlying feeling of frustration with the Baggies. You know, I think it all boiled over a little bit with like Callum Robinson getting booed at one point. I think that him coming off when he was substituted was sort of cheered sarcastically by the fans. So it still feels like there is a lot of pent-up frustration around the Hawthorns with how this sort of season's unfolded, and understandably so, because they've fallen well short of those sort of standards that we thought would be there at the start of the season. I think that's a number of players, to be honest. After that, we then had Huddersfield playing out a 2-2 draw with QPR. Fair play to QPR, because I think that their mentality especially has been something that we've questioned in recent weeks, but to come back twice from behind in this one to get a point just serves as a bit of a reminder of what they are capable of doing, particularly in the final third. But to Huddersfield, that will probably feel like a loss given how this game sort of unfolded. Took the lead after just 6 minutes and they seem to be in cruise control. QPR getting back into this one just before half time though. Amos with the finish. Toffolo to give Huddersfield the lead once again. It's a brilliant ball in from Turton, wasn't it? The 2 fullbacks combining for this one, and Huddersfield then looking for that third goal. I think it was Sam McCallum with that goal line clearance. If that goes in, it's 3. This one's probably wrapped up for Huddersfield, but Chair's got something to say about that, and Huddersfield just didn't really have anything left in the tank to go again. I mean, if anything, QPR could have gone on to win this game. So, bit of a frustrating one there for Huddersfield, and they go into quite an interesting game on Monday against Middlesbrough. And finally, we had Fulham's promotion party halted once again as Derby turned this one around to walk away with all 3 points. Derby just have this never say die attitude, don't they? And that was fully on show in the second half of this one. Fulham started out well enough, nice link up between Carvalho and D Cordova-Reid, nice little give and go to give Fulham themselves the lead going into half time. And once again, similar to that Coventry performance, they had more chances than the one goal they went ahead and scored. I mean, Mitrovic had the ball in the back of the net in the second half, but he was ruled to be offside. But this Derby squad, they play in moments, and when they do get the ball down, play from back to front, they can absolutely open you up, you know. Don't take them for granted because of some of the youngsters that are in that side. Luke Plange was causing a real nuisance of himself for both goals, really. Obviously, gets the first one, the second one then goes down as a Tosin Adarabioyo own goal. It was Nathan Byrne who does fantastically well to sort of keep that ball in play for the second goal. Tim Ream, I didn't think had his best showing for Fulham in this one. I think looked like a bit of a rabbit in the headlights at some point. And I mean, is this a case of Fulham just getting a little bit complacent towards the end of the season? Back-to-back defeats. Will be very interesting to see what side shows up on Tuesday against North End, because I mean, yeah, once again they have promotion in their hands, but once again it's not happened for them. But those were all the matches we had going on in the Championship yesterday. I want to get your guys' thoughts on them all in the comments down below. Now, without any further ado, let's hop into our Easter Monday score predictions. And boy, do we have some big matches coming up on the Monday, starting out with Middlesbrough up against Huddersfield. To be honest, I struggle to separate these two sides. I just think that maybe with the home advantage, Boro might sneak this one. Both sides coming off the back of draws. Huddersfield maybe a bit deflated after the manner in which they dropped points against QPR. So I'm just going to edge Boro for a 2-1, but that could very much go either way. Barnsley against Peterborough. I actually thought both sides did fairly well this weekend, and I'm going to go for an unhelpful draw. 1-1 for them in that one. Blackburn up against Stoke. Surely Blackburn need to get something out of this game against a Stoke side who's got nothing to play for at this point and look pretty bang average over the weekend as well. But Stoke are a team who can turn up in moments, and Blackburn have been quite susceptible to that recently. Having said that, I'm going to say that Blackburn might sneak this one 1-0, but I'm not massively confident in saying that. Blackpool up against Birmingham, two sides who are on the beach at this point, so take your pick with this one really. I think Blackpool may edge it with the home advantage 2-1, but could literally go anyway. Cardiff up against Luton. I'm going to back Luton for back-to-back wins here. I'm going to go 2-1 Luton. Cardiff been a little bit guilty recently of starting matches quite slowly, and you certainly can't afford to do that against Luton. Coventry up against Bournemouth. This one would really make things interesting, both in terms of the playoff chase and the top two picture. I actually think that Coventry could edge that one with their record recently, the way they've played in these last two matches. They seem to have a bunch about them in terms of scoring goals and in the final third and creating chances. I think they could cause Bournemouth some problems. I'm going to go 2-1 Cov in that one. Millwall up against Hull. Millwall really could do with the win in this one, but Hull have been quite resilient on the road recently, and obviously got the job done on Friday as well. I think Hull could be a frustrating one. It might be another 1-1 draw there for Millwall, which doesn't really help them out in their top six pursuit. QPR up against Derby. Really impressed with Derby on Friday up against Fulham. But as we all know, away from home is a different kettle of fish for Derby, and I thought that QPR not necessarily turned the corner, but finally stopped that sort of losing streak that they had on Friday. I think they may get the better of Derby in this one, just sheerly because of that Derby away record. I'm going to go 2-1 QPR. Reading up against Swansea. Swansea have been brilliant in this second half of the season, but over the weekend was a bit of a sort of hark back to the start of the season when we saw a few more inconsistencies about them. And Reading, to be fair, still seem to have something about them, and if they don't fully believe yet that they're overland, I think they'll still be going for it in this one. And for that reason, I think Reading could edge it 2-1 to properly put them over the line. Bristol City up against Sheffield United. Sheffield United desperately need to get back to winning ways in this one after how Friday unfolded for them. I don't feel like they've got a massive amount of goals about them at the moment though, so if they're going to win, it's probably going to have to be a 1-0 or something like that. So I'll say 1-0, but I'm not massively confident in backing that. Forest up against West Brom. Forest on the other side, who are needing to get back to winning ways after how the Luton game unfolded. And I think they will go ahead and do so against West Brom, but once again, West Brom been a bit of a tricky customer, particularly against sort of top 6 opposition when they can cause some problems. And then last up at Craven Cottage, will it finally be Fulham's promotion party? It's Fulham up against Preston. To be honest, I think that Preston have been going quite well recently. It was a really entertaining game on Friday against Millwall. Could have gone either way. We're creating chances at the moment. Daniel Everson is playing like a man who is absolutely possessed. I'm going to go for a fun sort of 2-2 draw. High scorer in that one, why not? But those are my score predictions heading into the Monday matches. Make sure to leave yours in the comments down below. And there we have it, guys. That will now wrap it up for today's video. So as always, if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Apart from that, guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.